So yeah, we were there for about a month. We showed up to the site. I mean, it was like showing up to the Gobi Desert. It was like sand for as far as the eye could see, and some contour, fairly flat. But we're like, oh, we're gonna need some suitable dirt. So they, yeah, we can't build a bike park with sand. So, kind of under the cover of night, they were trucking in loads of clay and more suitable material.
Welcome to Trail Effect. I am your host, Josh Blum. Trail Effect is a show that dives into the stories behind trails, the communities that embrace trails, and the people who rely on trails as a way of life. The goal of this show is to turn the stories you will hear from our guests into useful knowledge that can be applied to your community while providing some entertaining and inspirational content. Guests on Trail Effect include trail builders, board members, community leaders, volunteers, and regular people who really enjoy trails. Episode 159 features Shea Farrell of Flowride Concepts. Shea is another professional trail builder that has been in the game for a couple decades now, and he is about as humble as they come. During this conversation, we go deep into some of Shea's early projects as a trail builder, along with some of his more recent projects. A special thank you goes out to Jeff over at McGill Trails for connecting Shea and I for this conversation. I received a special request to promote an upcoming film premiere from the Instagram sensation known as The Real Bike Tyson. If you find yourself in the Portland, Oregon region on Saturday, February 3rd, you should make your way over to the In the Dirt film premiere hosted by War Paint Magazine. In the Dirt is a documentary film about the Dene mountain bikers. This may sound familiar to you if you tuned into episode 94 or have seen or heard about the Resduro. This is an excellent film, so go check it out. Links for this can be found in the show notes. Cooley Creative is the title sponsor for this episode. They design and build custom websites as well as help companies with branding, photography, and e-commerce. Cooley Creative was started in Wisconsin, but is now based out of Bend, Oregon. Jared from Cooley Creative is a friend of mine. We've traveled together on multiple mountain bike trips, and sometimes he sends it. For more information about Cooley Creative, head on over to www.dudejustsendit.com. Yes, that's right, www.dudejustsendit will get you to the Cooley Creative website, so check it out. Trail One Components, the mountain bike component brand that was created to provide the best quality mountain bike components while giving back to the trails with every purchase of their products. My favorite Trail One components are the Crockett handlebar, the Rockville stem, and the Hell's Gates grips. For a 20% discount on all Trail One components, use the coupon code TRAILPOD at checkout. By using this coupon code, you are not only supporting trails, but a small commission can come back to the Trail Effect and help support the show. Now on to the Trail Effect with Shea Farrell of Flowride Concepts. Here we are today on Trail Effect. I have Shea Farrell. Shea is a co-founder of Flowride Concepts based out of Wheat Ridge, Colorado. And based on the research I've done, you were really early to the game in terms of what I would call modern trail building, but also the proliferation of modern bike parks, especially in the municipal setting. But before we get into that, let's talk about how and why you transitioned out of the world of landscape architecture and into the world of trail building, which I think is interesting because as we've more professionalized this world, a lot of the people, especially on the planning and design side, just, I don't know if it's by chance or otherwise, but come out of the landscape architecture world. And it seems like that's a track that now, if you're looking at getting into college and taking a track that then leads into trail building or trail design and construction, landscape architecture is a good track to get on. And so let's talk about your landscape architecture background and how that transitioned into where you are today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, Josh. Appreciate it. Big fan of the podcast, so I was excited to hear from you. So yeah, my journey into the trail building world started back in the early 2000s. I studied design at Colorado State University, and then one of my big first jobs out of college was at DHM Design, landscape architecture and land planning firm. And the team that I worked on specialized in park planning, resort and park planning. So, we were able to start integrating bike parks into these park master plans. So that's kind of where I was able to kind of join my, love of mountain biking into kind of my professional career. Yeah, early on it was we were just kind of donated some time to the efforts to start the Golden Bike Park here in Golden, Colorado. So I did some renderings and some site planning associated with that. We were working with COMBA on that effort. This is back in probably about 2007-ish. So yeah, that's kind of what transitioned me into the trail building world and incorporating bike parks into these park master plans. So yeah, that was kind of where it all started. I worked with my brother and good friend Josh Olson of the Trail Solutions now. Back then, we were actually working on the Frisco Peninsula master plan up in Frisco, Colorado. So we integrated the Frisco bike park into that design and parlayed that into the opportunity to build that park as well. So that's where things kind of started.
Where did your journey into mountain biking start? Was that like a lot of people that had come out of like BMX, like just, cruising around the woods as a kid and then transpire into as mountain bikes got better? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, actually, Batavia, Illinois. Not a whole lot of mountains around there, some hills, but yeah, we rode BMX back in the days, the classic plywood on single block ramps, was the go-to. And then, I think I got my first mountain bike, when I was maybe 15, 16. It was like a Huffy, front suspension, pretty useless fork, but, that was really probably my first 26-inch bike. And then when I went to school out of Colorado State is where I really, really got into it and became, an addiction of mine. So yeah, that's where I really cut my teeth mountain biking up there near Horsetooth Reservoir outside of Fort Collins there. Yeah, I went to school there and started my journey there.
As you got more into your journey with the landscape architecture side of things and then transitioning into the trail design of things, what were some of the common themes that you came across when it came to like selling the idea of a bike park or bike infrastructure in the municipality world? Because, that was, sure. We're going to timestamp that with, I'm guessing that would have been in the late 2000s for you.
Yeah. So, I graduated, I think it was 2003 and then started working, in the landscape architecture world in about 2005. So yeah, at that time, bike parks, it was relatively unheard of from a municipal standpoint. There's more kind of dirt jump spots in the woods and, private jump areas. So, one of our initial challenges was kind of showing, the town of Frisco, for instance, what a bike park was. So I was able to kind of use some of my skill sets with, establishing kind of perspective renderings of the site, taking the site photo, overlaying pictures of jumps and mountain bikers, riding jumps, kind of showing them the idea behind it, and also kind of the aesthetic, which, a set of really sculpted dirt jumps really looks cool, which helps. So, through, site planning and developing perspective renderings, we're able to start kind of communicating what we were even talking about during that time. So that's kind of how we, really kind of started dipping our toes in the water and, eventually parlayed that into building as well. Being
that it was Colorado, and maybe you didn't get any, but did you get much pushback or like what were some of the questions? Because I know that was pretty new. And obviously dirt jumps were a thing. I remember back in, I want to say it was 99. I was in Breckenridge for an event, a Norba event. And I remember finding a pretty significant set of dirt jumps and some pine trees.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But that stuff was kind of like, don't ask, don't tell if you got there because a local got you there. That's one thing, or, you had some knowledge, but it wasn't really, none of it was really that official then.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I think, back in the day, people kind of envisioned these big gapped out tombstone jumps, super expert level, jump systems. So, part of it was kind of selling them on the idea of progression, starting from beginners, kids, riding pump tracks, kind of developing their skills and showing them that these facilities could be built to kind of accommodate all skill levels. And so, I think when you start talking about, family fun and really inviting a wide range of people into kind of a park setting, I think that helps when you're kind of talking to municipalities, talking them through the process and what this kind of facility is all about.
Transitioning over to the resort side of things, you've been involved with some resorts as well. Back in the day, I think, the early chairlift access, we'll say gravity bike parks now were more or less glorified fire roads. sometimes there'd be single track off to the sides of them, but it wasn't like purpose built stuff. It was like, oh, this place has a lift. And so I guess we can run it in the summer and throw some and let mountain bikers go up on it. And sometimes it was as crude as you holding on to your own bike on the chairlift, right? And
Right.
other, chairlifts had hooks on them where you could hang a bike off the back of it or whatever. And, so what was it like as you transitioned to like kind of sell the whole thing to like, we'll say Keystone, for example, or another maybe similar resort, so they could see maybe the advantage of having this as a summer offering?
Yeah, I think resorts were kind of starting to recognize the need for year-round offerings, and so yeah, back in the day that Keystone Bike Park, I didn't build there, but I actually met a lot of good friends who were riding at Keystone back in their early days, before Winter Park became kind of a big resort bike park out here. But Keystone was experimenting with different trail styles, so pretty rocky, rooty, and rugged, back in the day. So I think we, kind of helped present the idea that resorts more like Whistler were building a big wide range of trails that again pull in those kind of beginner level riders, families, and show that it's a viable offering for kind of year-round amenity. So yeah, Keystone was awesome. It was kind of core scene back in the day, and then some of our partners in the early company were responsible for building some of those trails out there. And so yeah, I can't take too much credit for that, to be honest with you, but yeah, really that whole world started really evolving in that same kind of time frame as resort bike parks started growing and being the success of places like Whistler and drawing crowd in the summer as well.
Sticking with kind of the early part of your career, I noticed you built both in places like Anniston, Alabama at Coldwater, but then also up in more my neck of the woods in like Duluth, Minnesota, and also a bike park that those in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area are going to be familiar with, Cottage Grove Bike Park. How are those different projects, coming out of Colorado and then coming east into flatter terrain, but then also like Coldwater, I've not been there yet. I'm going to go there. Mm-hmm. But from what I've been told is a pretty rugged place in terms of rock is really hard. Definitely.
Yeah. No, initially coming off of the Frisco Bike Park build is when we really kind of formalized the company. And one of our first opportunities was subcontracting for IMBA Trail Solutions, Rich Edwards and Chris Bernhardt back then, kind of running the show there. And they invited us to come build some trail down Anniston, Alabama. And crazy memories of that first kind of venture. We decided it'd be a good idea to renovate a 1973 Winnebago in advance of heading down there, with the intentions of part of our crew staying in the Winnebago, part of our crew staying in the local hotel there. What we didn't realize was driving a 50-year-old RV at about 80 miles an hour that had a 3-speed transmission. Well, we got it about as far as Nashville, Tennessee before the motor blew up, which started just a wild chain of events in our first big project down there. But despite those challenges, we had a great time building. I think it's now the Tortoise and the Hare Trail, what I think the trail name is there in Coldwater. But yeah, such a cool place, such a different topography and terrain and wildlife and different challenges that we, encountered on this first big trip down there. So yeah, we had a great, crazy, challenging build down there. Yeah, it went well enough where, Trail Solutions wanted to work with us again. And so, yeah, we soon, I think one of the next projects was up there at Spirit Mountain in Duluth. Came up there, I think, Aaron Rodgers and Rock Solid crew had just built Candyland, I believe. And so our first trip up there, we built the Happy Camper, which is, I think, their beginner green descent. So again, totally different topography. I mean, I'm from the Midwest, so I was, fairly used to different climate and whatnot. But, the rains and the challenges that area presented really, pushed our limits. But, great time building up there. Came back to Spirit Mountain again to build, I think it's called the Wildcat Trail. At the time, maybe like Boss Hog, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, a couple more like advanced jump trails, fun downhill trails. but yeah, like one of those trips, we showed up and I mean, it was like spreading peanut butter around. Everything was crazy, just saturated. And, but we were on a timeline and had equipment on rent. And, so we had to make the best of it. And, fortunately with those rains, it really starts to show you what drainage is doing pretty quickly. So, able to kind of build, sustainable trails. And yeah, again, had a great time doing it. And, we always appreciate those early opportunities to build up there and experience, life on the road. Just a ton of fun and huge challenges, but yeah, really rewarding. Engaging with all those local guys. I think Glenn was heading up the bike park at that point, kicking around with Hansi, up around Duluth there, fishing, and he showed us a great time. So yeah, super fun connecting with people throughout the country on these projects.
Yeah, Hansi's a person I need to get on this show, and him and I have talked about that before, but I really need to get him on the show because he played such a pivotal role, especially here in the upper Midwest with Duluth and then other communities as well.
Yeah, you should talk to him for sure. I'm sure he has just a ton of stories to share.
So he was involved with IMBA. We're going to transition. We're going to talk about the Cottage Grove Bike Park, but I think one of the things that came out of the Cottage Grove Bike Park was a publication that IMBA put together on bike parks. I could be wrong, but I think that's what I remember.
Yeah. We collaborated with those guys as well on their bike park book. I did a lot of those renderings, kind of developed a style that, highlighted trails, in that environment, highlighted trails and features. And a ton of fun working with those guys and, Bob Allen, photographer for that. Yeah. And Cottage Grove was a great, again, super fun opportunity to work with. Chance was, a big part of that bike park there. So, our first journey to Cottage Grove there, we built the set of dirt jumps. Those guys had already done some building. Chance and the local guys, I think Adam Buck was involved in some of those early efforts as well. And then, we returned to build the slope style at Cottage Grove as well. But yeah, that's just a great example of what those guys, have been able to do as just a kind of a local community effort, create such a cool bike park. And, they're still at it, expanding it, which is so cool to see. Cause, a lot of times when, volunteers and guys who are just kind of putting in, their spare time to help make these parks happen, you kind of run out of steam. It's easy to run out of steam and get busy. But I mean, those guys have really stuck with it and, create such a cool little bike park for the community there. And yeah, it's great to see it living on here, almost 10 years down the line here. So yeah, really cool.
You just spurred my brain. So there's another book that IMBA came out with, and I noticed it more in this book than the bike park book, but there is renderings in this book that I'm going to show you. Nobody else will see it, but you know it. Are you the one responsible? Are you the one that we can give credit to that actually drew features over features so you could actually see a feature like really stick out from the topography that it's in? Was that kind of your brainchild? Because that's now become something we see more in the industry, and I think it's awesome.
Hard to say for sure if I was the first, but yeah, I mean, early on, I worked with Trail Solutions and kind of developing that style. Yeah, highlighting the features, because it's easy to look at a photo, the trails and features, and it kind of all blends together. So, it kind of helped develop that style that really accentuates features, and then even kind of incorporating different line work to show, direction of travel and the arc of a jump. And again, to help kind of visualize, how people experience these features in a trail setting and present that to the public or to the client. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. These days you see such amazing 3D modeling work, 3D renderings, and, that it's really probably, taken over that early kind of perspective drawings that we would do. Yeah, back in the day, a little bit of Photoshop work and turn one of those renderings around, and really helps kind of paint the picture. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that because I think that more than anything, I think really helps people that are not in our world, like your parks directors and whatnot, like visualize exactly what, even just like city council members or what, whatever that really aren't, in our world of trails and mountain biking, like visualize what actually, the landscape could look like when a project is done.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. It's super fun to visualize, it really stems from, I think every kid, has ridden, let's say you're on a road trip, looking out the back window of the car and, seeing the contours, the countryside pass by and, imagine what a trail or a bike or, snowboard, whatever it might be, kind of tracing those lines with your fingers. And I know I'm not probably the only one that, that did that as a kid. So, to try to depict that, in a visual presentation to help kind of, present these concepts and bike park ideas. I think, it was a lot of fun. And so that really helped kind of establish ourselves in the industry as well, bringing that skill set to the table. So it's still do a little bit of that, not as much as we used to, but as we stay pretty busy on the road building these days, and hard to tie myself to the computer, harder and harder. I'd rather be, behind the controls of Mini X, but yeah, nice to have when it's needed for sure.
Well, we're going to go all the way around the world to a bike park that really stuck out in terms of like the list of bike parks you have on your website. And that is Langfang Bike Park in China. How does that one come to be?
Oh man. Yeah, that one was another wild one. Yeah, I was invited by, Chris Kmeyer was working at IMBA Trail Solutions at the time. So it assembled a small crew. It was, Chris, myself, Randy Spangler, Mark McClure from the UK, and then HM, who has Dirt Traction, I believe is his company, does a lot of work throughout Asia. But invited us, to kind of help build one of the first public bike parks in Beijing, outside of Beijing. So we were there for about a month. We showed up to the site. I mean, it was like showing up to the Gobi Desert. It was like sand for as far as the eye could see, and some contour, fairly flat. But we're like, oh, we're gonna need some suitable dirt. So we can't build a bike park with sand. So, kind of under the cover of night, they were trucking in loads of clay and more suitable material. I think there was an official in the area. They weren't supposed to see construction efforts happening. So literally under the cover of night, they kind of trucked all this dirt in. And then, we set about, building a set of jump trails, kind of perimeter, XC loop, kind of this bike park facility, out, on the outskirts of Beijing. And it was a wild experience. Yeah, I think so. They brought in kind of a big crew of locals to provide some hand crew for the efforts. There might have been 20 to 30 individuals. I think the youngest one was probably about 60 years old.
60?
60, yeah. So a little bit of an older demographic that they brought in. I think kind of just farmers, from the surrounding rural areas. But I mean, they worked super hard and, helped bring this thing to fruition. But just some wild stories. And, I think one of my most kind of distinct memories was, we were trying to get a hold of a plate compactor. We'd seen some in kind of a rental store window in a local town, but the foreman of the project, on the kind of GC side, thought that what they were providing would work better. And what that was at one point they were hauling around this huge generator that was just like puking oil. They're hauling this thing around with a front end loader, and then plugged into this generator was like, it looked like basically like the motor from maybe like an angle grinder that was mounted to this metal plate. They were hanging by ropes, and they had two guys holding the ropes on either side of this. And that was what they were using as a plate compactor. So not super effective. Eventually we talked them into renting a plate packer for the, remaining couple of weeks. It was just wild. This crew laid down like erosion blanket across, massive site. They covered this place because it was sand, so anywhere that wasn't trail, they were laying down this white, like erosion blanket. They were pinning it down with chopsticks, literally, as kind of, as staples. Usually you'd use like a, landscaping staple. But, totally different world. But ton of fun. We were able to, do some fun stuff on a couple of days off that we had during that month, visited the Great Wall and did some cool things in Beijing and checked out live music. So yeah, it was a crazy experience. A ton of fun. Hanging out with Randy Spangler. That guy has just stories for days. I don't think you've talked to him yet, but it might be another fun one to talk to because he's been in the trail building world for a long time and just endless stories. So yeah, great crew, ton of fun, wild experience.
I just like my brain when you said bringing in dirt or clay under the dark of night in a communist country.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Again, we weren't driving the trucks. This is, we had instructed the foreman that we needed some dirt. So he arranged that, but it was literally kind of unfolded like that. It was a different experience.
How was the language barrier when it came to working with the other staff they brought on? Were you able to communicate pretty effectively?
Yeah. We had HM who was on our crew that, Chris brought in. Fortunately, he was able to facilitate communication quite a bit. Other than that, there was a lot of finger pointing and, at one point I was digging on one of the perimeter trails. I mean, just a vast landscape that we were laying this trail out. I managed to pluck an irrigation line, that it wasn't marked. It was, they had kind of irrigation laid out throughout this whole thing, so pointed at it as water was, as a geyser had opened up and, so a lot of finger pointing, a lot of kind of hand gestures and, we were able to communicate along with some effective translators. So yeah, it was wild.
Let's bring it back stateside. Let's go to COMBA. That's an organization that it's obviously been on my radar. I think it's on a lot of people's radar, but it really got on my radar more importantly, or more, I guess, acutely during the McGill interview.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And specifically with Idaho Springs. And while they brought up you building Green Trail in Idaho Springs, I came across the Sluice.
Yeah.
That's a trail that isn't green.
No.
And it seems like everything and again, I didn't have a ton of time to do research, but it seems like you're at one end of the spectrum or the other. Like we're doing green or we're going to send it. Let's talk about the Sluice because this one really piqued my interest.
Yeah. Yeah. The Sluice was an awesome project. So the Sluice at Floyd Hill. So that was one of the first, maybe the first kind of sanctioned bike only directional trails in Clear Creek County. So COMBA was involved from the beginning in pitching the idea and getting it approved through Clear Creek County. So they, kind of did the advocacy work for it as they usually do. And they're super effective in helping pitch the ideas of these purpose-built trails here around the Front Range in Colorado. So they had kind of pitched the idea, worked with Clear Creek County to get it approved. And then Scott Gordon with Contour Logic did kind of the preliminary design, the flagging of the trail. And then, we were fortunate enough to be selected to do the construction. The Sluice is a black, black diamond kind of, downhill trail right along I-70. So super accessible, on your way up from Denver to Summit County there. And amazing terrain topography on the site. Just such cool rock outcroppings and terrain to work with. So back, I think it was about 2019, I believe that we built that. COMBA kind of supported us through the project. They did, some kind of special projects, some rock work on certain, they call it kind of Dragon's Back line, which is kind of a cutoff line down the Sluice, really rocky, set on some bedrock outcroppings. And we got the trail built, about 1.25 mile and a half descent, but a lot of different options throughout. But fortunately, COMBA and Clear Creek County were great to work with. James Covally was at Clear Creek County at the time. And, when we showed him like this 10-foot rock drop or something, he trusted us that, this worked and this would be safe when they, on the county land there. And so fortunately they trusted us throughout the process to kind of build a really unique trail to the area. And then, COMBA, has since, largely been in charge of maintenance, along with the Clear Creek County crews who do a lot of great work as well. But, COMBA is just constantly adding more rock to the trail, armoring areas, really giving that trail even a bunch more texture and kind of the gnar factor. So yeah, super fun trail there at Floyd Hill. There's some other trails on that property that they've helped build as well. And yeah, it's become a cool little destination there in Clear Creek. So yeah, we were fortunate enough to be selected to build that one. And yeah, I mean, just a dream project, so close to home. Ton of fun.
According to Trail Forks, it's got a rating of 100 out of 100. And I think that, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure how the ratings go on Trail Forks, but I think it's based on use and how many times it gets used and whatnot. So like it's popular based on what they're actually, like what kind of data they can capture off people's phones or whatever other GPS devices they're using, as they ride the trail. So that's also pretty impressive to have a double black diamond or black diamond with even more difficult options as the trail.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, it's good. It gets a ton of good use. And, it's on the Front Range, the bike only trails are really few and far between, so obviously with all the kind of, heavy use on all these trails, certainly mountain bikers responded to having a trail all to themselves. Yeah, it's continued to be a really popular trail there in Clear Creek County. And yeah, it's great to see that it's, still a popular destination for people, for sure.
So I have not been there, and I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that haven't been there. What's the proximity of Floyd Hill to Virginia Canyon, where the project that McGill's talked about is going on?
Yeah. So it's literally about, 5 to 10 minutes. So Idaho Springs, the Virginia Canyon property is about 5 to 10 minutes west of Floyd Hill, right along I-70 there. So yeah, the Trek Trails at Virginia Canyon Mountain Park is a project that we're working on right now. We're teamed up with McGill, building kind of the blue descent currently, as well as another trail loop on the premises there. But yeah, again, Clear Creek County project in Clear Creek County here. Yeah. And the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park was again dreamt up by COMBA. They've been working on getting that system approved for probably over 10 years now. The notorious Tony Boone did a preliminary master plan there, which helped kind of spur project along as well. And then, it was actually about 2 years ago now, I believe, that we built the uphill climbing / hiking trail, about a 4-mile climb, takes you from the bottom up to the top. And then, now we've been working on the downhill trails, which they're just going to be super fun. It's again, wild terrain, super steep, super rocky, ton of bedrock to contend with. Yeah. Big challenge from a building standpoint, but love to take on challenges and Billy go with the mini X around bedrock outcroppings. And so, we're working on that with COMBA and with McGill, and then, the Argo and the city of Idaho Springs. The Argo is the historic mine operation there. So they're in, collaborating on this whole development. So it's been great to work with those guys. Yeah. Funded, in part by Trek Trails, also funding from Greater Outdoors Colorado, GOCO, which they've sponsored just a ton of cool projects around Colorado, bike parks and trail systems, and a ton of other outdoor recreation amenities. So we're in the thick of it, building through the winter up there now, but ton of more trails to come, and there's going to be something for everyone. Yeah. As McGill, as those guys mentioned, Jeff and those guys mentioned, there's a big history of, private kind of pirate trails in that area, which we used to ride back in the early 2000s, and, ton of fun, just fall line, super fast and features and rocky and loose, a lot of fun to ride. So it's actually, we've had an opportunity to engage those guys. Lee and some of the guys who've been building up there for a long time are helping build some lines up in Virginia Canyon there on the property as well. Bring some more of that kind of, core flavor to the trail system. So there's just gonna be something for everyone up there. Eventually they're going to be putting a gondola in, potentially starting here this summer. But, hard to believe and tell people they're putting a gondola in. People are like, really? What? And so, that's going to happen. But super fun project. And it's been great teaming up with those guys to bring it to life here.
Yeah, it was not on my radar until I was talking to Jeff and those guys ahead of that conversation. And then I dug into it more. I was kind of really blown away by all of it. Really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Like I said, COMBA's been instrumental in getting that approved. Gil McCormick with COMBA has walked that property from top to bottom probably about 200 times, just scouting stuff out. So him, Gary and Bob and a couple other guys from COMBA have, been awesome to work with, just providing all the support they can, doing cool, projects with their strike force team, building other rock lines and helping, supplement what we're building up there. And so, it's going to be a huge thing for the city of Idaho Springs there. It's just kind of stop over on I-70, on your way up to Summit County. But now there's, even more of a reason to stop and ride your bike. And again, it's about 30, 40 minutes from Denver. Yeah. Same to Summit County. So kind of right in the heart of things. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, it hasn't, there hasn't been much, it hasn't been talked about a ton, as far as getting people hyped up about it yet, but I think you'll start seeing more and more, coming up online as we finish some of these trails out and get ready to open them.
Heading back to Frisco, you've worked in a lot of different communities, and this, Miguel's brought this up too. I like calling them the Miguels because nobody's actually named Miguel.
Yeah.
But they brought this up too. But how is it to work in a community like Frisco in terms of like how progressive they are, versus like some of the other communities you've seen? Like, what are some of the things you've taken from that other people could maybe, take as well, as far as working with them?
For sure. Back in 2009, I think is kind of when we built Frisco Bike Park there. They're in Summit County, so they're used to kind of, progression, in the resort setting. So, they're used to, aggressive outdoor recreationalists, and, they have that contingent of people that get after it, in the mountains, whether it's on bikes or skis or snowboards. But, they embrace that idea, with the bike park or building advanced level features. And fortunately, they've also kind of embraced the idea of evolving, the bike park there. So we worked with Public Works back in the day, to get that bike park built. And then throughout the years, that park's evolved a lot more. Currently, Cody and the Jump Doctors have been just instrumental part of that bike park as it's evolved over the past, 10 years or so, and really become a dirt jump destination. So Frisco, has recognized, that need for progressive outdoor recreation, and they've really supported the efforts through the years. And again, so that bike park's really evolved really nicely over the years to become what it's today. And then, the McGills, built Aftermath, a new jump trail there on the peninsula, just to add, some more to that area. So it's really become a destination, and free to the public, which is awesome. They kind of supplement that with the winter operations. They've got Tubing Hill and a little no terrain park. And so that helps kind of offset some of the costs on the summer amenities, fortunately. So great working with municipalities that kind of recognize that need from the community and support it.
Well, transitioning into the planning and design side of things, we talked about this before I hit record, but Jeff McGill Lehman, told me that you're an absolute wizard when it comes to your computer skills, even though you've already alluded to the fact that you'd rather be operating some joysticks than a keyboard and a mouse. But along those lines, like us as an industry or community, like in building trails, we do have some pretty loose standards, but at the same time, there's been a pretty huge progression on the planning and design side of things. And as you've seen it, like how has that helped us get more traction with municipalities and get more traction with at one point it was, we were just doing stuff wherever we want to do stuff. And now we have to get permission. And then on top of that, you should really show what you're going to do to get that permission, right? Like, especially to the people that, may not be mountain bikers or understand what we're doing. Maybe they've, only installed, I'm going to say the word pickleball courts or basketball courts, ball fields, the traditional recreation infrastructure that, has been going on for decades. How have you seen, good planning and design really aid in helping bring this to life in municipalities and communities?
Yeah, definitely. As bike parks have evolved over time, certain features and bike park elements, have become a little bit more universal, I guess. I wouldn't say standard, it's never kind of a standard layout or design, but, in kind of helping develop details and specifications, as part of a larger construction document set, that's really what municipalities can relate to seeing, construction documents for whatever other kind of park, they may be more accustomed to working with. So, being able to kind of develop plan sets, renderings to really help communicate in a third dimension what these features look like and how they're experienced, has really kind of, brought that communication or language, to somewhere that they can recognize, as you're working through different submittals and approvals. And, as more and more bike parks, kind of come online and come to fruition, they can look at other communities and see the examples and see how much use they get, of such a wide range of people, little kids and strider bikes to, older demographic who are still getting after it and progressing their abilities. And so, from a park standpoint, it's, you can just engage so many more people. So, kind of communicate those ideas and designs, in an effective way through construction documentation has been, really critical in doing that. So it's been awesome to be part of that process and see how that's evolved here over the past, 20 years. Now that, bike parks become more and more prevalent.
Well, and then as a business owner, someone who bids on construction projects, how is it? How have you seen the evolution been with like having maybe looser documents versus documents that are tightened up better, so you can actually put a better price on something, and you're going into it, because we see, every project that comes out looks different, but when when there's less unknowns and less variables, you can kind of dial stuff in more. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. As just part of the, bidding process, it's super helpful to have kind of a set of plans that you're basing those bids on, competitive bids. So yeah, it's been really good to see how that has helped, standardize those things in a way. I think it's also kind of important, to leave that, kind of highlight that flexibility though also within the plan set where it's, this is darn close to what it's going to look like, but there's that field fit component, leaving that flexibility to make those modifications in the field, as it's necessary to build, a well-functioning park. You have to be building it, test riding it. And so it's been critical to kind of, continually remind client of that aspect of it, which is a little bit different from other park amenities. And then, it's been super helpful to have, organizations like the PTBA, Professional Trail Builders Association, who kind of, they kind of an aggregator of these different RFPs, and then, providing that, stamp of approval for companies that are in the PTBA. So it's, you're getting a qualified builder bidding on this, and, really kind of brings everything a little bit more to a more standard kind of product, in the end, trails and bike parks, making sure people are qualified. You've got a great set of plans to be working off of to kind of price out, bid on. So yeah, it's been really good. You kind of the proof is in the pudding. You see how many more of these projects, are coming online. And, in the early days when we started the company, 10, 12 years ago, we traveled around a lot. Out of desire, but also, there weren't that many opportunities just focused solely locally here. And then, that's changed quite a bit as county agencies and municipalities have understood the demand for, purpose-built mountain bike trails and bike parks. We've been able to kind of focus closer to home here over the past 5 or 6 years. Yeah, because there's been the demand for it, throughout Colorado and the Front Range here. And so we've been really fortunate to be part of that as well.
Well, and you just brought up a topic that I definitely want to talk a little bit more about, which is planning and design, but leaving the flexibility and the freedom up to the builder, because that is definitely a departure from what a traditional, say, parks director or something might look at. But at the same time, that's something that needs to be maintained, an aspect that needs to be maintained within our world, because you know, that's why you hire a certain builder to get a certain job done, you know, and you can base that on, you know, examples of previous work that they did. And granted, they're not going to recreate the same thing somewhere else. And I don't think they would want to, but we also need to keep sure we reinforce to potential clients in terms of planning and design that having a builder or a company come in and giving them the freedom to really express what they want to express in a responsible way.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a critical piece of it. You know, there's a lot of people who can kind of build your standard multi-use trail that's, you know, accommodates a range of users. And then, you know, it's just a little bit different building that bike only advanced descent or whatever bike park with, you know, beginner through advanced jump lines, or, you know, it's, again, you can create a set of plans that will get you real close, and it'll create a framework for the bidding, pricing out a project and understanding some of those cost implications, but then, you know, getting the right crew on the ground has done it, you know, has proven experience doing it. And so, yeah, again, like a great thing for the PTBA that is able to kind of vet different companies. And not to say there's not qualified builders outside the PTBA, but, you know, you've got a group of professionals who's reviewing applications for this company, who's can look at the projects they've done and say, yeah, that was done well. That's really been well received. It's held up well over the years. But yeah, because it's really kind of that artistic component of it, you know, that can kind of, you know, interpret that plan set and then really bring it to reality, you know, to be a really nicely flowing, well functioning bike park, you know, or trail system. So yeah, just having that process, you know, that kind of qualifies builders from past experience, you know, it helps the client get the right group of guys or gals to build a project.
Yeah, and you've brought up PTBA now a couple times. One of the things. So about a year ago, I interviewed a guy. A little less than a year ago. Goes by the name Dirt Sculpt Dave. Yeah, he's out on the East Coast, and he's a PTBA member. And I asked him, I'm like, you know, so what you do is really, it's a lot of like the same thing of what you yourself do, Shea. It's more in the world of bike parks and that. And I said, how is it to be a PTBA member? You know, because historically PTBA, it's only, let me rephrase this. Only recently, and I'm going to say in the last 10 years, has PTBA become a really bike dominated entity, which I think is a good thing, because I think it's helped push the envelope for all forms of trail use in terms of, you know, getting drainage and everything dialed. But he compared being a member of the PTBA as like also being in the yellow pages, like municipalities now know who you are, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Dave King, Dirt Sculpt Dave. Yeah, he's kind of a legend, been doing it for a long time, an OG in the business there. And so, yeah, exactly right. You know, it gives people somewhere to look, you know, to find these qualified builders and entities around the country. So yeah, it's a really good thing. You know, we've been members. Progressive Trail Design sponsored us back in, I don't know, maybe 2016, 2017 in our bid to join the PTBA. And yeah, they provide a ton of value for their members. And then, yeah, again, just kind of a great place for clients and counties and municipalities to come looking for the right talent to get the project done. So, which didn't really, you know, exist before that. So, yeah, really good organization to be part of. And they put on a ton of events that, you know, help educate builders and continued education and, yeah, help promote their members. And, you know, it's a really valuable thing. Yeah, served on the board for a couple of years. I jumped off the board here last year. Just had a little girl, Radley, who's almost 2 now. So I, you know, had my hands full and felt like I wasn't able to contribute the kind of time I wanted to the board efforts. But yeah, a lot of respect for the people who just put in a ton of work, you know, on their own to help further that organization. And I'll try to jump back on the board here at some point. I've got a little more time freed up, probably.
Moving on to what I like to refer to as famous failures. Failure, I think, often connotates, you know, a negative thing, but really the point of this is more of a positive thing. Famous and failure just happen to go together because they're, you know, F words. So,
yep.
But what are some learning examples you've had, through your career in this that maybe other people could learn from, or kind of just, or even if you got a humorous story in terms of like something you learned from?
Sure.
Besides driving a 3-speed across the country to Nashville and then blowing the motor.
Yeah, I mentioned that one. See, that was first of many. No, I think the thing that one of the things that we continue to learn on is, in a bike park setting is dirt materials, clay, different types of clay. There's been projects that, we found, the reality is dirt is different all over the country, all over the world. And, you really have to get, into that local area to find out what's available, find out what works. So, I think that's one of the biggest learning curves is finding the right material, especially for bike parks. We found material in the past that looked to be the right stuff, nice clay content, packs well, easy to work with, but then, you get a little too much water on it and starts fluffing up, and it's an expansive clay. It's expansive soils, which are super prevalent. They're really prevalent here in the Front Range as well. So it's, we've built a set of jumps and then, the dirt just was not holding up like we wanted it to. And so we've recapped the entire set of jumps, in the past, a while back now. But, I think that's one thing that we continue to try to get right. Everyone's got different opinion on dirt. There's bike parks that source material from a certain place locally here that, we're still trying to refine their mix. I'm always sitting with the soil scientist when he gives his talk at, the PTBA conferences, trying to pick their brains and trying to figure out more sustainable solutions. And so, that's certainly, a big challenge that, we're continuing to, as bike parks, specifically keep looking for kind of low maintenance solutions, playing the materials and figuring out, what works. We're going to be building a bike park here down a little south of Denver coming up pretty soon here. And, they really wanted a low maintenance solution, but they also wanted to maintain texture, some of those elements of mountain bike trails, so you don't want to asphalt the entire park, which, you're seeing more and more asphalt work now, which is great too. We are incorporating asphalt pump track into that project, but then we're also doing just a ton of rock armoring, ton of flagstone, armoring berms. We're going to be really trying to build a park that, requires a little bit less maintenance. The downside of that is, harder to evolve, like a park like Frisco. Like I said earlier, it's evolved really nice over the years because of that fact that it's built, out of dirt. So it's, you're building new lines, keeping the park fresh, keeping people engaged. The local communities and riders, passionate riders, love to work on jumps, love to improve things, build new lines. So I think that's, you're kind of finding the balance between really building a permanent facility, but also building something that can kind of grow and evolve, over the years as people progress as well. Yeah, dirt. It's tricky. It's always different on every project, and I'd say that's one of the famous failures or opportunities for improvement.
Yeah, and I can see where that is super important, like in a park like Frisco, where you do have it changes over time, and people can people have the freedom to do more, and then the other side of the spectrum is like pre-manufactured features, right? Yeah, definitely. I mean, and we integrate. We work with American Ram Company, spec a lot of their prefab stuff more and more. Yeah, because you have to keep the facility safe as well. If you have a dirt jump that hasn't been maintained, the radius changes, things change and, can become unsafe to use. So yeah, we love working with those guys and working with, prefab ramps as well. And, to really strive to make each park different still though, even if some of those features are somewhat standardized, you can always configure them in different ways and creative, use of those features. It's fun to try to integrate the designs. Well, we're going to go to one of the fan favorites or listener favorite questions, but I'm going to ask it a little bit differently. And that is relative to trail communities. And so if given the chance to design and build a new trail community, I'm going to ask you to answer from a selfish perspective. What are the amenities you feel are most important to you? And what would you personally like to see in that trail community?
Good question. Let's see. I think more than anything, I guess again, progressive trails that really can bring beginner riders into the mountain biking world, but also provide trails for, kind of seasoned veterans to be progressing their skills on, and challenging them, pushing the limits as well. So it's, it's kind of that build it, they will come kind of thing, trails, good terrain, some elevation, not critical, but, you do need some to provide those kind of gravity experiences. But that, selfishly,
I should have added, you can put this community anywhere too. So you can actually, you can say what there would be for elevation and stuff. You don't.
Yeah. Okay. It's nice to have at least 1,000 feet of vertical drop, so you get those trails that are, you can get that advanced trail. It's still like a 3-mile, descent. So providing plenty of fun for everybody. But, I think it's really it's similar to what, Bentonville's been doing, where, I'd incorporate trails and the greenways throughout town, that lead out to kind of more remote, longer distance trail networks, providing the idea from riding out from your door, stopping at a cool restaurant or microbrewery, whatever it might be, on the way home from a ride. In Denver, we don't really have, Wheat Ridge, we don't really have that luxury of riding out the door. I mean, I'm sure some people do, on a long ride, to the foothills. But yeah, that's, like my next, wherever I live next, we move, would be closer to the trails where I could hit them from the front door. So yeah, I just like the idea of creating those networks in town that, progress you and advance you out to the more remote trails, and, gravity oriented stuff is just, my preference, so getting that elevation, 1,000-foot plus elevation gain, to kind of create some of those experiences. Yeah. Having cool bike shops and brew pubs and, restaurants to kind of finish out your day at on the way home. I mean, I think that's the dream for any mountain biker, but, when the people really make it though, the clubs, I think the local clubs are so critical to each area, creating that bike community, promoting trails, advocating for them, creating a place where people can gather, different events and talk trails and donate and help make things happen. Because people love, mountain bikers love to help be part of that process, of getting new trails to the community. And yeah, that'd be my dream. Somewhere you could ride year round. It's nice around here, Front Range. We can kind of ride some trails throughout winter if it's kind of south facing. Plenty of years where we can be riding throughout the winter, and year round riding, part of that puzzle too. Selfishly, but yeah,
that's what I'm looking for too, is year round riding.
Yeah, definitely.
To summarize that, what I think I heard was the next evolution of the stacked loop trail system, but it isn't the stacked loop trail system. It's a stacked loop community.
Yeah, exactly. You said it. That's the one.
That's awesome.
Cool.
December of 2023, I was in the we'll say the greater Detroit area for some work. And it was interesting because while I was there, it just happened to coincide with one of the Motor City Mountain Bike Club's meetings. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was almost like I stepped into a time machine and went to a regular mountain bike club meeting from, we could even say 2000 or 2002.
Yeah.
There's a few more females in the room, which is good to see because it used to just all be dudes.
Right.
But it was a bunch of people met at a microbrewery to talk trails. And it was so refreshing to see a community that was super proud of what they have and super amped up on what they have. And I'm going to tell you, what Detroit has isn't a lot. We're talking little pocket parks of couple mile systems here, couple mile systems there. There's no big epic adventure, systems. But from what I could tell, they have a very healthy cycling community there in that whole Detroit metro area. And it was such an awesome thing to see. I haven't seen something like that in a really long time. Yeah. And so it was cool awesome to see that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, mountain bikers are really great at, just using what they have even though I requested 1,000 feet elevation for my dream community, it's not critical. Having grown up in, like I said, the suburbs there of Chicago, I mean, we could go out and have fun all day at just the local forest preserve with little hills, few kickers here and there, some jumps. And I mean, people embrace what they have and have a ton of fun with it. I mean, it's really comes all down to the people and their love for riding two wheel. It's pretty cool to see. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear that it's thriving up there, and kind of reminiscent of where most of these clubs kind of started out. And that's huge joy in our work, is working with these different clubs all over the place, and seeing the passion they bring, and people out there just donating their sweat and making things happen. And I mean, we feel just incredibly fortunate to be some of the lucky ones to get paid to build jumps. It's a lot of kids' dream to do that, and so I try to remember that every day. And ton of challenges involved, difficult days, but always try to remember what we're doing out there, and feel super fortunate, to be able to work with my brother Casey, who's the other part of our company, and our guy Victor, who's just a critical piece of Flowride as well. And these guys super hard workers, and love doing it. And so it's fun to be involved with these guys and with the community at large doing this. Ton of fun.
With that, before I wrap this one up, are there any closing comments or anything that maybe we didn't touch on, story or something that we didn't get to that you'd want to tell before we wrap this one up, and then also throw out some thank yous? Yeah,
well, definitely. I think, we've got to recognize some of the people we've been fortunate enough to work with, recently working with Jefferson County and some of one of their first bike only, directional trails. It's just awesome to see more and more of that happening here, selfishly close to home with Clear Creek County and Jefferson County and some of our clients here, around home. And then the clubs, the COMBAs, the Route County Riders up in Steamboat, up in Estes Park, just the organizations that have, I think they do the hard part in a lot of ways, getting these things, getting the ideas presented, raising the funds to make it happen. They're doing the work that needs to be done to help continue making this happen and growing the trails around the country. And I'd say thanks to my guys here at Flowride, Casey and Victor and Quentin and Jay and a few of our guys who we've worked with over the years. And again, Jeff and McGill and Josh, Olson with Trail Solutions, some of the guys that, we kind of started this idea with and started doing this working around the country, building trails. So thanks to those guys, got to thank my folks who always supported us and doing whatever crazy ideas we dreamt up of, including making a living, building jumps. So got to thank them, and my wife, Becca, baby girl, Radley. Can't wait till she's out shredding our trails as well. So and thanks to you, man, for doing this podcast. I just always one of my go-to listens behind the controls, the Mini X, or, so much fun listening to the guys, Adam Bucks and Tony Bones and, all the guys that, have been doing the same thing we've been doing over the past 10, 20 plus years. Been fun listening to you pick their brains and hearing how people are doing it, and, how we can continue making things better in the trails world around the country, around the world.
Yeah. Well, Shea, I really appreciate that. And thank you for taking the time to come on this podcast so people can hear your ideas. Cause I think, there's always a whole bunch of different ways to get something done, and to be able to knowledge share and compare notes and just hear what other people are doing and get inspired to maybe just do something a little bit differently, or add a little bit of spice to a trail or something, whatever it is. I hope we can continue to help inspire growth, or even inspire a volunteer to get that access we need to build. Right.
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, hey, happy to be on. It was a lot of fun recounting some of the stories from over the years, and looking forward to seeing where you take this.
Yeah. Well, I thank you.
Awesome.
I didn't think you would have a story like that from China.
I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of stories I'm not remembering, or can't mention on the air. Maybe, I don't know. No, it's fun, seeing how people do it all over the world, and love the travel associated with it too. So Yeah. Thanks, Josh.
Well, thank you.
Great talking to you.
Thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please take the time to share these shows with others. Sharing these shows will help create awareness of both the guests who have taken the time to be on the show and the podcast series itself. Also, if you're new to the Trail Effect Podcast, check out our ever-expanding library of episodes. If you listen to the Trail Effect Podcast on Apple or Spotify, please don't forget to leave a rating and review, as this is one of the best ways to show our support for the Trail Effect Podcast. Also, don't forget to check out Cooley Creative at www.dudejustsendit.com. For additional ways to help support the Trail Effect Podcast, check out the affiliate links tab at the Trail Effect website, where you'll find links to Kettle Mountain Apparel, Worldwide Cyclery, and Trail One components. By using the affiliate links found at www.traileffectpodcast.com, a small commission will come back to the podcast, which will help keep this thing going. This podcast has been edited and produced by Evolution Trail Services. Thank you again for listening.